Hello and welcome to Mental Health Matters with me, Dr. Audrey Tang.
And me, Judith Crozier.
This is the show where we take a look at a mental health or wellbeing topic, but we do not have hot takes and quick fixes. We actually work with academics to bring you thought through, research-based advice and information. And today's topic is one of those topics where actually this is so important. We are talking about body image. I mean, where do we start?
Well, it's something we talk a lot about, don't we? Together and with friends.
And I think as women, it's something that's at the back of our minds every single minute of the day, which is scary.
I think so. And I was actually thinking about this. Do I think about it consciously? I don't think I really do. But it's there subconsciously. And
it's constant.
Yeah, it is. It is there all the time.
And there's been recent research which shows that girls, as in 7-8-year-olds, describe themselves through the lens of boys. They don't even realise they're doing it, but they will describe themselves as, I'm quite quiet because boys don't like girls being too loud.
But that's shocking.
Isn't it? And it was Rosalind Wiseman. Now, her book, Queen Bees and Wannabes, was the inspiration for Mean Girls.
Right.
But Rosalind Wiseman talked about fruit pot girls, and this is a great example of how young girls perceive themselves in relation to other people. She says that these very smart teenagers were pretending they couldn't open a fruit pot so they could say to the boy, "Could you do this for me, please?"
Oh, really? Wow.
Outrageous, isn't it?
They're so manipulative as well.
Well, it's manipulative, but it's tragic that is what a girl is going to grow up thinking, is that I am no use on my own. Yeah. I have to get a boy or a man to do this for me. And
and even if they don't have to because they are capable, they've already learned
pretend to not be capable.
Yeah.
We are dimming our lights from a very, very young age. And I think a lot of that has to do with perception of our objective self. You know, it's all very well saying, it's who you are on the inside, but...
Yeah, but that's not what you I suppose children don't know that, do they? So children are all about what they see. And then that's too late then because that perception is already in you. Yeah. Because you are a child, you have children around you. So that's the...
and it becomes normal.
Yes.
This is going to be an incredible conversation because we have got Dr. Jekaterina Schneider. She works for the Centre of Appearance Research and she researches all the up-to-date information about women's perceptions of themselves, what body image is, because it's a big construct, men's perceptions of themselves, and how that plays out in the real world. So let us welcome her to the show.
Welcome, Dr. Kat. It's lovely to have you with us this morning.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And we're talking about a really important topic. So, talking about body image, what do we actually mean when we talk about body image?
Yeah, so when we talk about body image, we generally refer to our thoughts and feelings and also behaviors towards our body. And one important thing to note about body images is not just about appearance, so not just about how we look, but it's also our thoughts and feelings about what our body can do and experience, and that's something we refer to as body functionality. So you kind of have these two aspects of body image, appearance and functionality, even though, of course, most of the time people think it's about how we look. But it's kind of any thoughts we're having, critical, positive, negative, about our bodies, about our looks, and also how we take care of our bodies, so self-care behaviors, how we express our bodies to others, how we express our appearance, all that sort of falls into the concept of body image. Okay. And then just another thing to mention is we often think about positive and negative body image as kind of like two ends of a spectrum, but in reality they're two distinct constructs. So you can have negative body image to some extent, so you can feel dissatisfied with some part of your appearance, but still overall have a positive body image, which means you appreciate and respect and care for your body. So they're related constructs, but they're two distinct constructs.
That's really interesting because personally I've always wondered how somebody who I perceive to be, near perfect can have issues with their body image, but that you've just explained it really clearly, and it's kind of obvious.
Yeah, and I just made the note on functionality is actually a separate construct,
yes,
which I didn't realise. It's almost like I use it in coaching as a separate construct, but to hear it from the academic who researches it, brilliant. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's so interesting. Like you've only said one thing, and it's just brought up so much and clarified so much as well. So thank you.
Then I'm done for the day. Thank
you. And thank you. No, we are keeping you.
Yes, we are. So why does body image then, do you think, impact on our mental health, especially women's mental health, but not only women?
No, I think there are some who probably think body image is this kind of not that important, a little bit of a shallow construct about kind of like, oh, you don't feel happy with how you look, it's not a big deal. And I think part of that is because it's so normalized to have some kind of discontent around how we look. And so it's like, oh, everybody has it, get over it basically and deal with it. Like you said, men and women both experience body image concerns, as well as people who are non-binary or don't fall into these neat categorizations of gender. But the reason women are most impacted is because of the quite narrow appearance societal ideal for women and for women's bodies, and because women's bodies have traditionally more often been kind of on display, sexualized, objectified, and are often held to quite strict standards, but even when it comes to, obviously when it comes to body size and weight, but also when it comes to aging and the kind of the forced notion of aging gracefully or having to not look like you've aged at all for the most part. And so there's generally more pressures on women to look a certain way, and they're usually kind of boiled down just to how they look, while men are typically appreciated for like a wider variety of characteristics. And that's not to say that men don't experience body image concerns, because of course they do. But I think that's also where it comes from, this very, oh, this is just like a small concern about how you look, to kind of wider mental health and even physical health effects of that. So, you know, we see that body image concerns are linked with depression, anxiety, stress, things like suicidality as well. In terms of physical concerns, in terms of physical health concerns, there's things like cortisol reactivity due to stress. There's things like people who experience worse body image tend to exercise less, tend to have more disordered eating and eating disorders, which of course have physical health consequences as well. So it's not just this kind of unimportant thing. It actually affects our mental health a lot, our mental and physical health a lot. And it has all these consequences and a lot of other things. It's often considered a precursor for eating disorders as well. So and we know eating disorders are one of the deadliest mental health conditions in the world. So it's quite important.
Such a huge topic, actually. Yes. And so to unpack it all is, in the time that we've got, is difficult. But what I would be really interested in is, because you've mentioned the common things that people will talk about when it comes to how they look, especially women, if they don't fit the ideal that we see in the media and so on. But in your research, have you seen other things come up that maybe struck you as more unusual or a little bit, I didn't know about that?
I do a lot of research in kind of sport and exercise settings. That's where my main research lies. And I do sort of research on body image, but also weight bias and weight stigma. So particularly focused on kind of the discrimination and biases we have towards people living in larger bodies. And in that setting, I think one of the surprising, but also maybe not that surprising bits, is just how normal it is, to the point where every single person we speak to has had at some point some body image concerns or still has some body image concerns presently. We also see a lot of negative body image experiences in the sport and exercise settings as really predictive of whether people engage in exercise at all and how they engage in exercise. So again, that's obviously from my from my particular area of research. But for example, we have negative experiences in young childhood of physical education related to the body. So feeling like your body's on display, or the school uniform doesn't fit your body particularly, or you have negative comments from peers or boys, or even sometimes coaches and teachers. And women we talk to in midlife and older still recall these negative early experiences as something that for most of their lives have put them off kind of going back to any formal exercise setting. And that is heartbreaking, really.
Yes.
But it's these important elements that I think a lot of people don't think about of having negative body image. Okay, maybe it has impacts on mental health, but it also has impacts on how people show up in the world. We have evidence that girls don't raise their hand in class if they have low body confidence, or they don't put themselves up for extracurricular activities, or they don't engage in sport and exercise, which of course has tons of mental, physical, and social health benefits. So it kind of infiltrates every aspect of life, and it often has really, really long-term effects as well.
Yeah, because it almost feeds into that stereotype of if you don't put your hand up because you're self-conscious, you won't be seen as dynamic.
Yes.
And then people go and associate, oh, well, it's somebody who's living in a larger body is not dynamic. But it's not that at all.
No.
It's the fact that they've been made to feel self-conscious because of something else, and that's been the symptom rather than the cause.
It's a really good point. Yeah, absolutely.
So on that, I was so interested in your recent paper. I love the fact that you pointed out women can hold as many positive messages about body confidence in their heads as they like. They can still feel it differently. And so what do people misunderstand about body confidence?
I think when we say body confidence, or we also sometimes say positive body image, it's often conflated a bit with that kind of body positivity movement that didn't originally start this way, but now is very much often about just love your body, love everything about your body all the time. It's obviously not realistic. It's also not particularly helpful because it still often puts the focus on appearance. So it's like, accept your body roles, or accept your cellulite, or accept this and that, which absolutely we should do because those are very natural variations of the human body, but we should appreciate our body for more than what it looks like, and it's not really realistic to love your body all the time. We often talk about body neutrality instead, or actually the true definition of positive body image is not the way it's portrayed in kind of body positivity social media movements. It's more closer to body neutrality, where you don't have to love every aspect of your body, but you respect your body, you appreciate your body, particularly for what your body can do for you and what it can experience, and then you also take care of your body. So you engage in self-care behaviors, and so it's more kind of about that respecting, accepting, and caring rather than loving your body all the time.
Those are beautiful words, respecting and caring, and those are actually more important words that we need to be using.
I was thinking exactly the same thing when you were saying that, Dr. Kat. I was thinking that actually if you turn your thinking around and use words like respect, then you're going to maybe think, it's going to make me think about, do I need that chocolate? Because actually that's not showing it with the respect, because I know what I should be putting in my body, and I do it, but I also have other things that I shouldn't be. So the respect and the nurturing and the self-care, it just makes me anyway, and you, I think, look at it from a different way.
It's a whole different mindset. I'm so happy we're having this conversation. And honestly, please do read Dr. Kat's research, because she is there speaking to people right now, experiencing things that we're all thinking and we're all feeling. And that's an important discussion to have. We're going to be back with Dr. Kat after this short clip from one of our resident experts.
The way you speak to yourself today is often the echo of how someone once spoke to you. The critical voice, that pressure to be perfect, that fear of getting it wrong. For many people, that started in childhood. And here's the important part. Your inner child is still listening. So when you say, I'm so useless, I should be better than this, I always mess things up, it lands somewhere deeper than just words. Now imagine speaking to a child that way. You wouldn't. So here's a simple shift. Next time you catch that inner voice, pause and ask yourself, if this was a child in front of me, what would I say instead? And then say that to yourself. Because healing doesn't come from criticism. It comes from safety.
Welcome back to Mental Health Matters, where we're talking to Dr. Kat about body image and everything to do with that. And it's so interesting. It's such a interesting but a really important discussion to have as well. So I'm thrilled that you're here today. Why do so many capable women feel not good enough or incapable because they don't like their body?
Great question. This is actually another key aspect of my research, or something that I'm definitely trying to incorporate into my research. Again, I mentioned kind of this misunderstanding that body image is not a big deal. And so kind of, oh, these capable women, why do they care so much, or why they're so hung up on appearance? And one of the key aspects of that is that not only does it in fact, does body image impact our individual behaviors and how we feel about ourselves and mental health and all the things we've spoken about, but it's actually it actually impacts how we're treated in the world as well. The privileges we have. We sometimes talk about pretty privilege, and that's not to say that, you know, people who are closer to the societal appearance ideal don't have any concerns in the world. Of course they do, but they still experience privilege in terms of really tangible benefits like promotion opportunities, more money, being treated with more respect by others, not being harassed, not being discriminated against. And when we talk about people who are further and further from the appearance ideal, you know, not only is it about how they're treated by others and the opportunities they miss, but it's also, you know, sometimes about complete exclusion from environments that are not built for their body size, for their weight. You know, we talk about everything from gym equipment to gym attire to, you know, seat belts on airplanes, in cars, you know, so it's about safety, it's about environmental exclusion. So of course it's a huge impact. So even if you are feeling, you know, really capable in every other way, if your appearance does not match the societal ideal, you will have some disadvantage in some areas of life, and unfortunately that's going to be something that's really, really crucial and really important to you. And also we see all these kind of media messages and these pressures about what we should look like. So even if we ourselves decide, okay, I'm going to just love and accept my body the way it is, then you step out into the world and, you know, you have constant adverts, weight loss medications and pressures to look a certain way, and models and all of that. So it's sort of not enough to just tell someone to love their body, because then they step out into the world that basically tells them to hate their body. And so kind of that incongruence is constantly there, and more so for people who are kind of further away from the societal appearance ideal.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense what you're saying.
It's
It's awful, really. And so, talk about practical things as you were. So, why do, for example, at the gym you mentioned, you know, the machine's not built for people in a large body, or clothing or mirrors. Why do they matter so much when it comes to engaging in healthy behaviours, and what can be done to address that?
Yeah, I actually come from a sport and exercise psychology background. So before I was sort of exposed to the body image and weight stigma worlds, I was involved in a lot of kind of physical activity interventions to get people moving more. I think we can all agree that, you know, regular physical activity is beneficial for most of us. And as a society, we don't move enough. And then I noticed the problem with a lot of these interventions is that they're really kind of focused on the individual. So like, what helps you move? What stops you from moving? How can we motivate you more? How can we get you from the contemplation stage to the action stage? All of that, which there's nothing inherently wrong with, but I would argue most people know we need to move regularly, and most people know how to do it. But then again, they step into these environments, into these gyms where, you know, from my research and also from research with from others, we see that, you know, for example, women specifically, they come into a gym, they're perceived as novices just by being a woman. They're assumed to be there for cardio or weight loss rather than resistance training, or, you know, they feel excluded from the free weights area. We often see that the gyms still to this day can be quite spaces of quite toxic masculinity and quite gendered, and even the equipment is kind of divided into this is the male zone, this is the female zone, which obviously is not the case. We do see that more and more women strength train. Then if you're living in a larger body, you're even more so going to be perceived as if you don't know what you're doing in the gym. Everyone will assume you're there to lose weight. You might struggle to even find clothes that fit. When it comes to equipment, they might not be set up for your body. You might not fit. Or the equipment might be too close to each other, so you might not fit between them comfortably. So it's even small things like that. Then we've spoken to women in our research about feeling like they need to be put together when they go to the gym because otherwise they're not taken seriously. But then if they're too put together, they're still not taken seriously. So it's kind of this, like, I can't win no matter what I do situation. And a lot of people just put off then from going to a public exercise space. And then it's not enough to just say like, oh, you're not motivated or you're lazy or you don't want to exercise, but actually like this space isn't safe for me. You know, we talk about harassment, even women jogging outside, you know, there's safety concerns, there's spatial concerns for larger bodies, there's ability and accessibility for people with different types of abilities, or, you know, for people with disabilities. And all of that is like the environment and the people in that environment that don't get that training, that aren't upskilled, that aren't adjusted. And instead we're just telling people to move more, which is just not helpful, because when they try, we're often faced with these external barriers.
It's so important you mention environment, because this is something that I find in my wellbeing training in organisations. It's all very well telling the individual, this is how you can bust stress, this is how you can build your resilience, etc., and then off you go back to the same toxic environment that caused you to have all these problems in the first place. Well, unless we're dealing with the space that we're expecting the change to happen in, nothing is going to change. And I just smiled when you talked about the change cycle from contemplation to action. It's just because it's useless if the space isn't there for you. I just remember watching it was America's Next Top Model, one of those, where they were saying, oh, we embrace larger bodies. Nothing that the fashion world brought for the girls to wear fit one of the models. And that experience is just horrific. So you're saying one thing, but actually going, oh, only if you're up to a size 10. And that's considered, you know. So on that note, Dr. Kat, something that you said in your research is one bad experience can negate every single good experience that you've had. And that's, to me, is crazy. But why is that?
Well, it is crazy. It's very upsetting. But as human beings, I think we're just biologically programmed to focus on the negative. It's a survival mechanism. It's kind of how we've survived as a species, like by focusing our minds on kind of the imminent danger, right, rather than embracing all the positives. And unfortunately, that's an evolutionary advantage that persists to this day. Disadvantage in some cases. We've spoken to women in our research, and like 100% of them say that they've had negative experiences of physical education back when they were children.
Wow,
and they remember it decades and decades and decades later. They still remember these comments. And it is really heartbreaking, because not only does it emphasize like how important it is to intervene early, and again, it's not just about intervening at the individual level, but the systems level. So, you know, educating physical education teachers and making sure school spaces are safe. Particularly when we see, you know, all the public debate constantly about physical inactivity and how much it costs the NHS, and yet, despite like thousands and thousands of interventions that we have to date, physical activity levels have not increased in decades. They've stagnated, and women and girls are still disproportionately less active than boys and men at every age, pretty much. So clearly what we're doing is not working, and we just need to intervene sooner and not just at the individual level, because these experiences have lifelong consequences.
Yes, I'm just sort of writing your point down, not adjust at individual levels, because it is about the environment. Honestly, it is about the space that you are trying to do those things in, because you're already nervous when you're trying to make a change, that if anything then happens, you're already on edge and you think, this is not safe for me, I can't carry this on. So on that note, Dr. Kat, how does a woman in particular, I guess, rebuild after those negative experiences? Because it's just not as easy to go, oh, just find another gym, you know. It doesn't work like that.
No, women report sort of very different strategies for how they've overcome that. And, you know, some of the women we spoke to in our research, there was a bit of a mix. So some kind of never reconnected with exercise, and some did, and some went on to have meaningful, empowering relationships with exercise. Through a mix of approaches, so a lot of trial and error, finding a space that feels right, that works for them. Obviously, a lot of own work as well, because, you know, when we particularly talk about body image and focusing on body functionality over appearance, one of the things we can do is shifting our relationship to movement from one that's like all about how we look and losing weight and changing appearance to like what it helps us do, getting stronger, getting fitter, and all of that has actually nothing to do with appearance at all, getting healthier, which also has nothing to do with how we look. And so for some women, it was about finding finally a positive space, which is also a great sign that the fitness landscape is shifting. There is more positive, inclusive spaces coming up. There's more options for women. Women-only spaces are cropping up in different places. So, you know, there was opportunities that were open for them, and they were able to find a space that finally worked. Definitely working on our own body image and our motivations for movement, finding a community. That was a huge kind of theme in our research. Is, you know, exercise is inherently a very social activity, or can be a very social activity, and finding community that feels safe and empowering can be really beneficial for people, finding a movement that works for them and a movement space that they enjoy coming back to. So kind of all sorts of strategies, and unfortunately a lot of trial and error as well, because sometimes, you know, you'll go to a gym and it's just not what you expected, or it's not right for you, or it's harmful, and so then you have to. But I think that's also a really great lesson, is you can quit a gym and find a different space. There's especially now and post-COVID, there's so many online spaces that have cropped up as well. And for people who don't mind having more of a virtual community, that can be a great option if the physical space feels unsafe or just like unwelcoming.
Really good things to think about there. Lots of different options. And to anyone who has felt unsafe in a space, it really is, please try other spaces, because I think, Dr. Kat, you're absolutely right. There are many more spaces coming up that are aware of this. And I think people themselves are aware of it too. And so maybe men are going to be less likely to even look at you. They just going to focus on their own thing, kind of. So hopefully there is a shift coming. Maybe it needs to be faster. Dr. Kat, we're keeping you, and we'll be back just after a clip from one of our previous resident experts.
Most people are waiting to feel motivated before they take action. But motivation doesn't work like that. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. Think about it. How often do you feel like going to the gym before you go? But once you start, it gets easier. That's because action creates momentum, and momentum creates motivation. So instead of waiting to feel ready, focus on starting small. One step, 5 minutes, a tiny action. Because the hardest part is not the task, it's the beginning. So the takeaway is simple. Don't wait for motivation. Create it.
Welcome back to Mental Health Matters and our discussion on body image with Dr. Kat, which is so interesting and so important as well. We're talking about exercising and the difference between health and losing weight, as you said. So, but how do we separate health from punishment, for example? So forcing ourselves to go to the gym or do some exercise that we really, really don't like, and then maybe rewarding ourselves with, you know, food, cake or chocolate or something.
Yeah, so when we speak about we speak about the cycle of kind of the reward, punishment, reward pathway, where oftentimes exercise is framed as punishment or restriction of some sort, rather than something that's therefore meaningful, joyful engagement and part of our lives. So one of the things I think of is, it's changing a little bit now, but one of the things I think of is all these slogans around fitness that are very much around pain and punishment, restriction, like no pain, no gain, or fat is your sweat crying, or some say like don't stop when it hurts, stop when you reach your goal, or something silly like that. And then there's like shifting language from nothing tastes as good as being skinny feels to nothing tastes as good as being fit feels, but the fit is still very much a very thin looking person. And all of this is just framing movement as something that should hurt or some kind of punishment. And then, of course, you reward yourself with food or you reward yourself with something afterwards. And it's all about discipline. It's all this very kind of hardcore messaging that is just not that helpful. From decades of sports science research, we see that, generally speaking, people who exercise for external reasons, so this could be to change your appearance, to lose weight, or simply due to external pressures of like, okay, this is what other people are doing, so I should be doing it too, or, you know, your family or friends pressuring you, like you should exercise. Those people tend to exercise less and exercise more in the short term, so not stick with it in the long term, compared to people who exercise for internal reasons. So enjoyment, health, functionality. I like how this movement makes my body feel. I like doing it. Yeah. And all of that to say is maybe it's not groundbreaking, but I think sometimes we forget that when we do something we enjoy, we're more likely to do it for a long time. And the same can be applied to movement. So I think a lot of us see very, very specific, narrow types of movement that other people engage in. So things like going to the gym, running marathons, doing high rocks, doing CrossFit, all of these things that are popular now. And also with the addition of more recently sort of Pilates kind of having its boom again.
It is, yes.
So we think this is valid movement, so I need to do this type of movement. But we forget all about the range of movement that also counts, is also equally valid. So things like dancing, things like yoga, things like hiking or walking, you know, self-defense, whatever it is, sports, team sports, all equally valid types of movement and things we might actually enjoy doing, but we don't see it as much as, or even things like doing some weight training at home. Like, it doesn't actually have to take place in a gym. It's like little things like that I think we sometimes forget. So joyful movement, genuinely enjoying what you're doing is just kind of the best advice I can give. And then we also, on the other hand, see this messaging about how we all have the same 24 hours in a day. So if I can do it, you can do it.
I hate that.
My least favorite saying probably of all time, because it just neglects the reality. It's a very privileged position. It neglects differences between people. And also just, again, makes it seem like exercise is kind of something, this external thing to our lives, that we have to shape our lives around exercise, when in reality, movement or exercise should fit into our lives the way they are to make it more sustainable. So, for example, instead of going to the gym to walk on a treadmill, you could be walking from home to work. It's something that's already integrated in your routine. It's equally valid. The body doesn't discriminate between, you know, walking on a treadmill or walking outside.
True.
The body doesn't even discriminate between walking outside and walking outside to a coffee shop. Like, it doesn't, you know, that's also movement. It's the same movement. And I think the most sustainable thing we can do is finding something we enjoy and or integrating movement meaningfully into our existing lives, rather than trying to like change our lives around to try to achieve some kind of unrealistic exercise goal.
I need to record this and play you on loop in my head. And just to interrupt, because I know you've got another question, but there is this messaging at the moment as we're living longer, you know, aging well. But unfortunately, the aging well message has become a little bit synonymous with these pensioners who are running marathons and doing high rocks and doing reformer Pilates, you know, all of that at age 90. And I look at that and go, I'm never going to do that.
No.
Does that mean I'm not living well? And what you're saying is that walk out in the sunshine is living well.
Yeah.
Doing that every day is living fantastically. And that is really important.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's a really good point. Yeah, I love that. It takes the pressure off. I know that I don't have to be running a marathon at 85. I mean, if I start training now, I might get there. But
you know, if I start walking now, I might get there.
It's a goal. So, you know, we've talked about the gym and briefly mentioned fashion. So we know that they can make improvements to help people living in a large body. But how can, and to help with body image, but how can workplaces help in that regard?
Great question. I think what we've talked about is kind of this need for a systems approach. So rather than giving individuals, body image training or seminars, or, there's mindfulness courses, all that sort of things that, great for employee well-being as well. But as Audrey mentioned, like the wider system and the wider environment is most important. I'm lucky enough, I'm going to give a shout out to the Center for Appearance Research where I work, where it's probably one of the few places I've ever been where we just don't engage in body talk. And if you start noticing this body talk is any conversation that has something to do with reinforcing a certain way to look, so the societal appearance ideal. So body talk can be positive or negative. So an example of positive body talk, in quotation marks, because it's still harmful, is, oh, you look great, have you lost weight? And then we have negative body talk examples like, oh, I shouldn't be eating that, or I'm trying to lose some weight, or, oh, my hair looks awful today, or whatever it is. And these conversations are so normalized. Like, it's, we almost say it by way of greeting, like, oh, I'm going to be naughty and order a muffin today. Or, I need to work it off at the gym. Or, oh, you look great, you've lost some weight. Like, it's so normal. And I think when you start noticing how normal it is, you will notice it everywhere, because it literally is everywhere. But where I work, because we're the Center for Appearance Research, that's just not a normal, so I sometimes feel like I'm in this protective bubble. But I actually think one of the key things that workplaces can do is just eliminate body talk. Like, we don't tolerate body talk here. Like, there's no need to comment on someone's appearance or your own appearance. That's just something we don't need to engage with. So I think that's one thing. Which is more kind of social approach. And then we talk about all these environmental things. So do we have chairs without arms, or do we have chairs that are comfortable for larger bodies? Do we encourage gentle movement breaks, and do we present space for gentle movement breaks? Do we encourage kind of a work-life balance so people can, spend time taking care of themselves outside of work? Do we, provide accessible bathrooms, accessible hallways? I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a conference and been uncomfortable sitting in a session the whole time because like the armchairs have been digging into my legs. And it's like, it's just little things really. They aren't that big. They aren't going to be that expensive to fix, like making sure we have different chairs. It could be things like, if you go into a gym, or if you go into like a health clinic, or if you go into like a leisure center within an office space, like, is the scale the first thing you see? All the messaging around appearance. It can be things like advertisements on the wall. Are there before and after bodies? Are there actually positive portrayals of fat people, or are they all sort of a before picture? It can be things, it can be generally quite small things that add up to make a difference. Or if you go on a company retreat, right, like, do you have t-shirts that fit everybody, or do you have like limited sizing? It's individually, they're not that big steps, but they actually make a huge difference to make people feel welcome. So it has to be on an individual level, it has to be on a social level, and it has to be on a company level. And you create this environment, your policy, where we do not tolerate or we do not accept sort of negative body image behaviors or practices in this office, and make that public. That's, I think, also super important.
I think when you talk about as well how simple positive talk actually is as well, because a lot of us are kind of aware of negative, but we don't realize how often we just use, oh, you look amazing, as a statement. I know I use that a lot, and I'm going to be more conscious of that. So this question, it's kind of wrong now because of what you said, and I do understand that. But if we do still talk about our body, or maybe our inner voice talks about our body in a critical way, what could we do to change that? Whether it's focusing on neutrality, or even if there are bits we just don't like, and how do we change that inner thinking?
Yeah, definitely not a wrong question, because we in the body image world we don't say like never talk about your body at all. Like, that's just not
it's not possible.
It's not realistic. There's one of the key shifts is shifting from appearance to functionality. So instead of I hate my legs, you can think, oh, my legs have carried me through, I don't know, a hike, the work day from place to place. So shifting that functionality perspective. I hate my hair. Oh, my hair is a result of like generations of women who came before me. So just shifting it from that appearance focus to functionality or some kind of appreciation in a different way, if that helps. I think that's one of the biggest shifts. The second thing, one of the questions I often get asked when I talk about body image is, oh, so I shouldn't care about my appearance at all? Like, why can't I get my... No, of course you can, and that's absolutely fine. So we talk about like adaptive appearance expression. So, wearing makeup, getting your nails done, expressing yourself with clothes, with jewelry, absolutely all fine to do. It's just that kind of shift of, are you feeling anxious leaving the house without makeup? Or are you using makeup as a creative expression? And I think we saw that even a lot in COVID times. I mean, this is anecdotal. I don't really have studies for this. But women on social media showing like their COVID masks with like a ton of makeup on. And they're like, this is proof that we don't do this for others, that we do this for ourselves, because you're wearing a mask when you're in public. And so nobody can see your makeup, but it's there because you're putting it on for yourself. And sometimes it's really difficult to disentangle, like, who am I doing this for? So I'm not saying this is easy, because unfortunately, we can't really in reality disentangle the social cultural pressures we received from our own kind of wants and needs. Like, they're all enmeshed at this point. But it's a good thing to think about of like, if I was alone on an island, would I still want to get my nails done, or would I still want to lose weight, or would I still whatever else? And there's some people who will say, yes, I absolutely love experimenting with clothes. Should I not care about that anymore? And absolutely no, you should do what makes you happy. So I think that's the second shift, is kind of to this more adaptive way of thinking about our appearance, rather than, is it literally giving me anxiety to be in this body? And then the third shift, I would say, is trying to celebrate appearance diversity. And that's one of the, more kind of social, beyond yourself sort of tactic. And for the most part, I think we can all understand that people just come in different shapes and sizes. There's natural diversity in, hair color, eye color, skin color, all sorts of things. And why should body shape not be that as well? And it's about kind of starting to celebrate it, because I think the more, and we have literature showing this, the more you celebrate appearance diversity in others, the more you appreciate the uniqueness of your own body as well. So I think that's another kind of shift where you can talk about appearance, and you can notice people's appearance. And you can also notice that they're all different, and celebrate that, and be happy we live in a world where people look different and not all just like looking the same, because that would be very boring.
Oh gosh, absolutely. And just already your energy and the positivity and the joy that's coming out of this, I'm just feeling better listening to you.
Absolutely.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. But when should someone maybe seek some professional support from a therapy point of view, with regards to their body image? Because if maybe they recognise that their conversations, it's dominant about negative self-talk or that kind of thing, that's different, isn't it, to, I'm just feeling a bit wobbly today.
Yes.
There's a difference between a bad hair day and an obsession with, what does my hair look like?
Yes.
When should someone seek help?
Absolutely. And just because sort of body image concerns are normalized doesn't mean it's normal. Like, it shouldn't be. And we do see a spectrum, between this kind of normalized discontent that we all should feel dissatisfied with something, to the point where people are over exercising or skipping meals, and we're starting to see like disordered eating behaviors and eating disorders. Absolutely. Beat is a eating disorder charity in the UK. Mind.org, NHS will have some support services. So in that point, absolutely yes, eating disorders can be, you can recover from an eating disorder, but the sooner you start, the better. Then there's things like if you are, losing sleep or feeling anxious all the time, or investing, considerable energy, time, money in your looks. So, for example, if you're waking up a couple of hours early just to get your makeup right, get your clothes right, or you're investing a ton of money in supplements that, most of them are just, horribly useless and do not work at best, and at worst can be harmful. And then I think that's when you also have to check in, like, am I spending unnecessary mental energy, money, and time investing in my appearance? is it causing, anxiety, depression, all these things, I think definitely also seek help. It is, it can become a serious mental health concern, but it is also something that absolutely can be overcome. And I think the more we encourage people to not treat it as something that's just normal and just that everyone has, and the more we talk about body image, I think the less stigma there will be to seek help and to, admit that there's, we can all benefit from therapy anyway. So when in doubt, I would say that's a great route to take. We can all the crazy world we live in, I think we can all benefit from talking to someone anyway. So there's absolutely no shame in seeking help. And there's plenty of resources out there to do so.
And just to pull out on that, just seeking help, because I think this is really true. I'm already taking hormone replacement for it's a small hormone replacement, but recently I've recognised I think I need more, and I've actually spoken to a GP about this. Rather than spending hundreds of pounds on supplements and all the adverts and all of that, they've just said, okay, well, given your data, we'll prescribe you these patches. Try that. It's half the price of what I have been spending, and it's actually going to, and it can be as simple as doing something practical for your body, not necessarily, that's not psychological, that is just literally a practical thing that is going to affect my nails being brittle, my hair falling out, those other appearance-related things. It's a health-related issue. And
absolutely.
Just you saying seek help is just normalise that.
Yes, absolutely right. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Dr. Kat, we could talk about this all day, and I would love to talk about this all day.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we can't today. But where can we learn more about you, read your research, and stay in touch with you?
I do talk about this all day, every day. So
you're amazing.
That is, and I love talking about it. I think it's just so important. So thank you for having me on today. I have a website, drkatschneider.com, which has links to my research. Obviously, all my research is on things like ResearchGate and Google Scholar, but it links to that on my website. I have a LinkedIn page. I have an Instagram page that I try to keep active, where I also share my research as and when it comes out, particularly related to weight inclusive and body positive fitness, which is, again, Dr. Kat Schneider on Instagram. So I think those are the best places. And of course, I have a staff page at the University of the West of England, where I work at the Centre for Appearance Research. We have a podcast as well, Appearance Matters, the podcast, where if you just want to know more about body image stuff, I would recommend listening to. But I think drkatschneider.com and my Instagram page is probably the best place to start.
I will put that all with the show notes.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kat. This was such a pleasure. We will come back after Test the Trend. On this week's Test the Trend, I want to suggest a very simple shift in mindset. And this is something that echoes what Dr. Kat's been saying, and that is when we think about things going well and having a great life, what do we think about? I'm really happy. What do you think about to have a great life, to be living the dream life? What's your perception of that?
Calm. Just looking forward to things. Everything is easy, I suppose. And personally, like feeling healthy, feeling awake, not feeling tired all the time.
And do you think that would happen every single day, even if you were largely living your dream life?
No, but that's how I imagine it will be.
And this is where the problems come in.
Okay.
A lot of coaches, trainers, and I see the packages on LinkedIn. It's all about, oh, you're feeling down, come to coaching and we will teach you how to thrive. And I was one of those coaches, because you package up what you're offering. But what we're doing is we're selling something that is really, really unhealthy. And this is what Dr. Kat was saying. The healthy living, a dream life is just, life is okay.
Yeah,
it's
true.
okay. It's okay. If something bad happens, I'll deal with it. It's maybe not having the extremes, but when we start saying when you're thriving, you need to be excited and joyful or running marathons or doing high rocks competitions all the time, that is not sustainable. That is not living day to day. So I want to give you a challenge today. There is something in psychology that they're now calling glimmers. And this is a very beautiful word. And that is just the moments every single day that it just feels nice. Whatever it is, if someone's held the door open for you, or someone's smiled at you, or you've seen a cute puppy, or the sun's out, which is, quite incredible in the UK. Those little moments. Now, I'm going to use a naughty word here, because it's not about your life thriving and being the most incredible thing every single minute of those 24 hours. It's just about life not being quite so shit. And that is what glimmers are, because life can be crappy.
Oh, yeah.
That's life.
Yes.
There's ups and there's downs.
Yeah.
And therefore, if we are just looking for glimmers, which just bring that moment of calm that you said first.
I did.
A moment where you can just go, okay, I'm here. I'm good. I can cope. That's enough. So when it comes to thinking about how you can make your life amazing or beautiful and brilliant, that's a great aspiration. It is not going to be that high octane living every single minute of every single day. So what we've got to learn is not reduce our expectations, but learn to accept life as life is, but then look for the things that make it that little bit more special. I wish we could talk to her all day.
I know. I didn't want the conversation to finish.
I'm so jealous she has those conversations every single day, because this is so much to unpack. And I'm really glad she brought up the difference between eating disorders and disordered eating. Because eating disorders, we know about those. But disordered eating is when you start skipping meals, or you start having the replacement shakes or whatever, when it becomes obsessive, and when you're always thinking about weight, or you're always thinking about should I have this, or counting calories, then it is disordered eating. It's not an eating disorder.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it's one step up from that, I'd say. Well, that's how I picture it in my mind anyway. But yeah, it's still kind of on the unhealthy route, I'd say. And yeah.
Something she mentioned in her research, she didn't go into it, but at a conference when I was listening to her, and she was fantastic, she talks about this, was about gym wear. And the things she's working on with gym wear providers is the fact that if you are living in a larger body, you can't always get stuff that's fashionable and cute and supportive and all of those things. So you've kind of already got past the hurdle of, okay, I want to do some exercise. And then you just kind of go, well, I don't even feel nice doing it. And that's another thing that does need to change. And she's pioneering those changes.
Brilliant. And it's so important. Yeah, really, really important.
Yeah. So what? I mean, she said so much.
She did. Well, I'm definitely going to listen to her podcast, because I do definitely genuinely want to hear more. But yeah, there's a lot that came out, and so when she was talking about the workplace, what could be done in the workplace, I really, really loved all the kind of the practical ideas. So, chairs without arms, or maybe slightly wider, or slightly more cushion, or something, because going to a conference or going to a meeting can be a nightmare if it's just uncomfortable to sit in a chair for an hour. And when I was a lot smaller and lighter, that never even entered my head, would I be comfortable sitting on a chair? But it's really a thing, and just something so simple about having something more suitable available. That's a really good point. And she had loads of ideas about how the workplace could change or be better equipped.
But I think you've said something really important there. It is about making the invisible visible. By having these conversations, by talking about what people really are seeing, feeling and thinking, we can make tangible changes to the environment. And the environment is a key space that we do need to make welcoming and inclusive for everybody. But it is really hard to see that when your own landscape hasn't been that way. And so what you're saying is, if we do have these conversations, hopefully someone will hear that and say, I didn't even think of that. I need to make that change.
Can I just tell you a really quick example? So, and I've shared this before, I've been going to a weight management group for 12 weeks and I've finished now. And on the very last time we were in a different room, so you can imagine there's a room full of people, who are living in larger bodies, obviously, and we're sitting in chairs like this, kind of in rows. There's not that many of us, with the trainers sitting there with a desk. And we're sitting here, and it is the most uncomfortable thing. These chairs are great, but it's the most uncomfortable thing to sit in a chair. It's an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So the last session, we were in a completely different room. There was a massive square desk. We were all sitting around the desk, and I went, "Oh, this is so much more comfortable. I can put my notepad there, and I can sit. So much more comfortable to sit." And the two trainers, who are very fit and healthy and very slim, went, "Oh, we didn't even think about that." So for all the future courses, they've arranged to have desks for people to sit at, because I really love the groups, but I hate it. It was the most uncomfortable thing, just sitting on a plastic chair for an hour and a half. So yeah, that's such a huge thing.
Perfect example about space and the importance of space, because you can talk to the individual as much as you like. If they're not comfortable in the space that they then go into, they're not going to make those changes. So really key. I'm glad you shared that. Thank you. And on that note, from all of us here at Mental Health Matters, have a healthy week.